Hendy's again. Can they get this over the line? The Mealy pairing next to them. Here comes Hendy and Hendy. They've got over the line. They've done
Performance. Oh, I can't believe it. Trevor Hendy at 46. He wins an Australian title with his son. That's the most incredible thing you'll see, Glenn.
Trev, how you going?
Good, Rory, mate. Great to be here with you. Heard a bit about you too, so
All
good things.
good things?
Yeah,
all right.
good things.
Perfect.
TJ, my son, he's like, he's a good fella.
All right, lovely. Great review then. No, really thanks for joining us. And I just wanted to start for people that, mate, our clientele, mate, are football supporters.
Mm-hmm.
So just give them a quick rundown. Would you like to touch on your accolades or would you like me to touch on your accolades?
You could have a crack at it. See,
Okay, so 4-time World Ironman.
Yep.
6-time Australian Ironman.
Yep.
I don't know all the other ones under that, but that's what I've got so far. What else is under the belt?
The biggest one of all, mate, played myself on Baywatch. That's, of course, more important than an Ironman championship.
There you go.
No. Uncle Toby series back in the day. So a lot of footy fans were real Ironman fans as well. So a lot of the crew will remember the day when I was running around. But, we had the Uncle Toby series, had some amazing years on that. Used to be on Channel 10. It was on Sunday afternoon before all the other distractions came like Netflix and social media and everything else. So we used to have a captive audience back then. A lot of people follow it. Travelled the world racing and then, a lot of recreational stuff too, surfing, big waves and all that sort of stuff as well. So a lot of fun.
Yeah, so how do you get into that? We'll start early days. How does that come about?
Ironman?
Yeah.
Yeah, born in Melbourne and in Preston, so very much sort of Collingwood region, whole family supported Collingwood, all that sort of stuff. And father, when I was 3 years of age and my sister was 8, came home and decided he wanted to travel around Australia and didn't think, that perhaps just raising his kids the same way he was raised in Melbourne with the picket fence and the best job in town, all that sort of stuff. He was a builder. And he just felt something wasn't right. So we actually travelled around Australia for 2 years and settled on the Gold Coast. We nearly settled in Port Hedland.
Yep.
And he said, this place is great opportunities to my mum, Bev, Bev, great opportunities here. I can see this town really going ahead. And then it rained for 2 weeks. He said, we'll stay for a couple of weeks and we'll drive back, get the stuff out of storage and we'll settle in Port Hedland. And then it rained for 2 weeks straight. Couldn't get out for another 2 weeks because you were just bogged in. As soon as we could get out of the place, he got, he's like, all right, second choice, Gold Coast.
Goldie.
So it turned out the Gold Coast is probably the better option for growth. But I joined the Nippers when I was 8 years of age at Surfers Paradise Surf Club. Been there ever since, one club. And cried on my first day. Didn't want to be, competing against anybody else, but fell in love with the ocean. And then slowly but surely, I didn't win a race till I was 15 years, 16 years of age, really. So set some pretty big goals as a 15-year-old after being quite bullied through school and then just going through surf clubs. Back then we just used to call it, it's the rite of passage you went through, but it was like initiations and things like that where you just felt bullied in your club as well. So I went through that feeling of feeling like a small little kid, no power. And the winner, who was a year older than me, he seemed to get the girl and get the laughs and get the last say. And, and in the back of my mind, I started formulating this idea that the winner gets everything. And I hadn't won anything. And I was about 5th out of 6th in my surf club for my age group. And the kid that actually got 6th in the club championship was my best mate. And I talked him into doing it because he couldn't paddle a ski and I knew I wouldn't get last then. So that's how my mind was working. But actually just set all these amazing goals with an amazing coach and Billy Haylock, and he coached Dwayne Tyers, who was the world champion. And everything he said to do, I did, and I rose within a couple of years to be Australian champion and world champion through Nippers and then into, seeing, juniors and seniors and everything else. And very quickly got at the front of the pack and was with the boys like Grant Kenny and Guy Leach and Craig Riddington and that and Dwayne, and they were all 4 or 5 years older than me, but we all became best mates. And then at the same time, the Nutrigrain series and the Uncle Toby series, we had this little split, and the Uncle Toby series, Uncle Toby's went, we'll support you guys to have a live series on TV, national TV, and we went to lifesaving with it at first. And at the time, there was a clash between leadership, and they thought that was a threat if we did that to the old amateur ranks, and so they banned us, and Uncle Toby said, we'll pick you up. So we broke away from the sport and the sponsor of the the sport at the time, Kellogg's, end up Uncle Toby's series, and then Australia got behind us because they were like, you can't ban the Ironman. And so it was the cereal wars on the front page and everything else. And then we ended up getting like, I think there was days, it was like a couple of million people watching on free-to-air TV and stuff. And, you know, and as I said, crazy experiences and incredible time. And then, you know, met Madonna and Michael Jackson and played on stage with the Beach Boys and all sorts of weird, crazy things from sort of living that, you know, like the Ironman is so hot right now kind of thing, you know. And so that summarised it all pretty quickly. But at the end of all that, I had this little bit of darkness still hanging around because I was still the kid that felt bullied, and I became the winner and I have that feeling. So that led me into understanding, what am I carrying around? Why have I got relationship breakup? And why am I doing these things that aren't healthy for me or whatever else? And so it led me down the personal development path, and that's sort of rocketed all the way through to this moment.
Yeah.
So there we go.
There you go. Well, let's dig into some of that then, mate. There's a lot to cover. So what age did it turn for you then? Was that 16, did you say? From 15 to you found the coach at 16?
Yeah. It was that age, 15 to 16, the right person. I've got an incredible family always behind me, incredible teammates that really supported me. And at the same time was this double-edged sword, because incredible teammates, but there's also this one-upmanship that existed in our movement and our sport at that time and most of society, which was men being the alpha men. And so you were either the winner or the loser, you know, and that's the way we spoke, you know. And then it related to everything, like, you know, being with girls or whatever it was. It was all this kind of toxic masculinity, we now call it. A bit overused term, I think. Yeah. But you know, it was interesting because at that age I had that churning desire to not feel small and powerless anymore, and not feel like that I could be bullied or pushed around, or that my father was my hero and he had this beautiful wife, my mother, and I wanted to be like them, you know. And I'm like, I'm never going to get the girl because the girl always goes with the guy that's the winner. And so somewhere in the back of my mind, I had great family background, great values from growing up, great connection with the ocean, natural sporting talent that hadn't been unearthed yet. And then I just had this little snap inside of me where I went, enough's enough. I don't want to be powerless anymore. Yeah. And it just all happened from that period of time. So I was, I think 3 medals at the Australian Championships the next year. I won the junior board race within the year, you know, and won that race that I needed to win to feel like I was the guy amongst the juniors, and then set my sights to the seniors within that next 2 years, and had great success and built this understanding. My coach, Bill Haylock, was really, really big on process. And I know you've got Dimmer here now, you know, big on process and big on the moment. And we used to wake up at before a carnival, and this is at 16 years of age when it all turned. And I've got the goals, I've got the burning desire, which is going to be a problem later, but it's good for the moment, you know. And I had this process where from the moment the alarm went off, I had it written in my diary, 5:30 a.m. alarm goes off, 5:32 make bed, 5:36 carry bag to lounge room, 5:39 pour cereal and bowl, 5:45 finish eating cereal, wash bowl. It was all the way through minute by minute until it ended up at 8 a.m, finish warm up, and the order for the racing would be read out, you know. Yeah. So by the time I walked down the beach years before that, I'd walk down, I'd see Marty Kenny, who was Grant Kenny's younger brother, who was my age. Yeah. And Marty looked like he was carved from the hands of Zeus, you know, like I'd just see him and I'd get scared because he's the most sweethearted human. But I'd be scared of him because he'd be like, he's going to destroy me in the ocean because look at him. He looked, you know, he didn't look like Tarzan, go like Jane. He looked like Tarzan and went like Tarzan, you know. Yeah. And he was amazing. So I used to see people turn up and I'd read the list of who's in what heat, and I'd be thinking about everything outside of myself and trying to work out whether I was good enough based on that, leading up to that point. And then he got me in the moment where, no, the only thing you're working on is your warm-up or locating the tent, locating a car park, you know. Yeah. And then do that as well as you can do it, you know. And so that was what I was being measured on. How well can I locate a car park? And in the end, by the time I got to racing, I'm like, I'm actually in the moment, because I wasn't allowed to be out of the moment the whole morning, because that was my process. And so what that meant was I ended up seeing every set of circumstances as being absolutely perfect, because it's just another chance to teach me to be in the moment. So that's when it turned, and I started winning very quickly, and everyone's going, who's this skinny young kid? Like, no one's ever seen him before. It's big waves, that's why he got out. He won because of that conditions. And and then it'd be flat. Then 2 weeks later, I'd win in that, and they're like, "Who is this kid?" So I was probably a good example of untapped talent. That was sporting talent. My parents were sporting, and as soon as it got tapped into, it was like, there's an old saying like, the longer it takes to learn something before you actually finally get it right, really is like pulling back the bow on the bow and arrow a bit further and a bit further and a bit further, and the longer it takes, the more tension and the quicker you fly out. And that's what it was like. I was world champion within 3 years from that little junior set of goals. So yeah, and that was when it all turned, and that's probably why it turned. But also I just had this experience from that point on of feeling like as if, God, I'm really capable. I can do whatever I want, set my mind to. And that was also a dangerous thing, a double-edged sword, because now I can get away with whatever I want to as well, and no one can stop me or control me. So I had to grow up a bit from that. But that base level of, I'm capable of anything has been with me ever since.
So it seems like you're very present in the moment, and you said how measured you were in what you were doing, obviously to the minute.
Yep.
With the not lack of, but not as capable sports science, I would have said back then, from all reports, you would have trained like an animal back then. So what would that look like to make sure that you get to the start line and everything's right and you're fully confident in your own abilities?
I reckon Billy Haylock, my old coach, will probably end up listening to this podcast because he's an AFL fan.
You got to give him a plug.
And I've already mentioned him, but he would be sitting there going, "You better mention," because he was the first sports scientist coach in our field. So he actually went back. He put himself through sports psych. He was a geologist. Sorry, Billy, if I got that wrong. And he put himself through sports psych and sports science degrees to actually be better for us, which I reflect back on. I think, wow, how much of my success came from someone else being really good at what they did in my corner, and I've acknowledged him a lot for that, but I often reflect back to it because I've always had the best people in their field turn up in my life at the right time. You know, there's an old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher or the teaching appears. And he definitely appeared right when I had that moment of realizing I wanted to have some power in life, and I wanted to fulfill my potential and become somebody or something, which was also dangerous. But he brought sports science to it. So he broke down, and there's a great story to this, because he broke down the Ironman race into, and for those who don't know, a traditional surf Ironman race, ocean Ironman race in lifesaving, it has a board swim and a ski leg, and that is, the order of that is picked out right before you race. But the board swim and ski is around about 4 minutes in duration. So the swim is the shorter in distance because it's the slower one. So it's shorter distance, and the next set of cans further out are the board cans, and the next set of cans is the ski cans because it's the fastest one.
Yep.
And there's a running transition in between and a sprint to the finish line. So that race might run on a really quick day, 10 to 11 minutes. On a longer, bigger surf day, the traditional race, 18 to 20 minutes. So the state, Australian and world championships and most local carnivals is like a 12-minute race. And you've got to get through the heat and maybe the second round, quarterfinal, semi-final, where half the field gets eliminated till you end up in the final of all the best people. So you've got to do that race multiple times in a day, and then or over Australian championships over multiple days with all the other races that you do as well. And then at the end of this whole program, using Australian championships as an example, you've got to race this 12-minute race, which is the equivalent to just under a 1,500 metre freestyle or about a 5K running race.
Yep.
But you've got to race it with all of the different muscle groups. So the ski paddling, the rotation and the strength and big lats and big back muscles. The board paddling, abdominals, back muscles, again, really reaching out in front. So flexibility. So you can't be a big beefhead ski paddler and paddle a board well. And then you jump onto the swim and you've got to stretch your whole body out. You've got to swim streamlined and you've got to flow through the water. So then there's more aesthetics in that as well. And then you've got to get up when all the blood's gone away from your legs where you're using this upper body, sprint around and use another part of your upper body, and then get up and sprint around, and you've got to do that and then sprint to the finish. And lift your legs in wading and then porpoising, and then your heart rate goes through the roof, and you've actually got to go under the water to survive a big wave. And the big wave means you've got to go to the bottom for as long as you can so you don't get caught in the turbulence, and you get the water that flows out. And you've got to do this with 180 heart rate, and then when you come up, you get one breath and you've got to go down and do it again. And maybe you've got to do that for 5 or 6 waves on a big day before you get out through the back. And So, and then you catch it, you get your breath back while you're still swimming a 4-minute 10 or 4-minute free, 400 freestyle. And then you get your breath back, and then you got to take off on a wave. And for the first 15 seconds that you're holding your breath before you get in front of it. So all that came into training. So you got to have strength, you got to have endurance, you got to have power, you got to have agility, you got to have all these different things. So in many ways, it was the most beautiful, profound sport to train for. And in ball sports, I do relate it to AFL, because I always say to people, AFL is a circular sport, because you have to have eyes in the back of your head. You can actually get the ball and someone behind you is after you.
Yeah.
In rugby league, which I have great respect for, they have a whole different set of challenges.
Coming straight at you, aren't
It's
they?
coming straight at you the majority of the time. They might be chasing you down the field, but most of the time it's coming straight at you. Basketball, shorter court, rotation, all the different things, a little bit more circular. Soccer, so much movement of you've got your offside. So there's no one up there, there's no one behind you, in front of you in different ways that they would be on the AFL court. That's what an Ironman race felt like to me, is that you have to have everything covered, because when you do all those elements, you also start the race and you've actually got to be so present that the wave coming towards you is your number one priority and the number one thing you respect. If you respect the guy next to you more than you respect the wave you're about to approach, that guy's on his way to the title and you're languishing back behind him, because at the end of the day, when you did all the training, you had to actually connect with the ocean and you had to connect with your flow. You had to calm down. You had to learn when to stop, when to take bigger breaths, when to slow your heart rate down. You had to move and change like a little bit like an AFL game.
Yep.
You had to work when to go fast, when to slow down, when to get tempo and rhythm back and all that. So how did you train for that? Well, I had a sports scientist coach that just went, we're going to break it down. And the funny conclusion to this story was he built our whole training program for the week based on the East German swimming program. The best sports scientists in the world were regarded to come from East Germany, because they were winning everything and breaking all these world records and smashing it. And I think it was Bowler, his name was, or something like that. And so he had deep respect. He studied these programs and broke our Ironman race down into all these parts, and we trained for it like that. We also had Dennis Cottrell, who was our swimming coach, who coached Grant Hackett and then Sun Yang, the fastest 1,500-metre swimmers of all time.
Yep.
So he was in my surf club. He was a surfer in my surf club, you know. So I was blessed with another guy. It was at the top of his field, about to produce world champions, to be my swim coach as I was coming through the ranks and everything else. So Bill and Dennis would work on this program. Anyway, we got to the end of my second year as a junior after these massive goals, and I'd won everything for the year. I was undefeated for the year. And Darren Mercer beat me in the Australian Junior Ironman title. He won. I got second. It came down to the swim leg at the finish. He just swam away from me, and I just had this. I couldn't go with him. And we finished. He said, "What happened?" I guess I don't know. I just didn't have this other gear, He said, "Yeah, okay." And he studied and everything else. He goes, "I just have the feeling that we might have maybe somehow we've overtrained you, or you've got stuck in this groove that you can't accelerate out of, And well, yeah, and he goes, I'm tweaking training and I'm going to change it up. Next year, we're going to put more rest and recovery, more surfing time, more enjoyment. I'm really going to change it. But at worst, we've built this a crazy 2 years of base, and we're going to change it up." He changed it up. And the next year, I won the Australian Open Ironman Championship, second youngest person to ever do it, after Grant Kenny being the youngest. And everything just fell into place from this new program. And I learnt to balance things, that the equation, stress plus recovery equals peak performance. And I got that from Kane Johnson, ex-Richmond captain, Adelaide Premiership player, who's a business partner of mine. We put on breath and breakthrough retreats together, and he always puts this model, stress plus recovery. And I'm like, why stress? He goes, well, that stress is how you grow and how you got to break your muscles down and build them back up. Plus recovery. So we got the recovery part right, and we ended up with peak performance. And then about 10 years later, they all got busted. The East Germans were on drugs the whole time.
I was going to say, when you said that, I thought they were juicing up.
Yeah, they were totally juicing up. And so I'm thinking, God, I mustn't be as good as those East Germans, because I can't cope with this level of training. So I think the boys now do about 30 minutes of intense effort in a training session. So, you know Ali Day well.
Yep.
Ali's a great mate of mine. He's in our surf club. And Zane Hamill, who I helped mentor as well, is the coach of Ali. And Zane, the sports science now and the numbers is this reduced amount and this quality and recovery and everything else. We were doing 72 minutes of effort in a training session 5 nights a week, and then basically a 3-hour training session on the Saturday morning for a whole season. And based on what the East Germans were doing, and swimming training in the morning, so 4 mornings a week as well, swimming, 5 to 7 Ks swimming as well. And Dennis Cottrell's swimming program, he's all about distance too.
Yeah.
So I was absolutely stuffed, basically. And then I was hugely relieved to understand that, hang on a second, mate, you couldn't cope with this because you weren't juiced up. I was basically fueling myself on Macca's at the time. That was my,
Uncle Toby's.
Yes, Uncle Toby's,
Uncle
absolutely.
Toby's, that's right.
And that was pre-Uncle Toby's.
Okay.
And then after that, I because I'd always grown up doing it, under being the Vitabrits guy on the back of the Vitabrits pack.
Yeah, right.
Because I used to eat 14 a day.
Yeah.
That was my morning. I used to eat 14 Vitabrits with 3 or 4 Monte Carlo biscuits cracked up on top to give that little bit of treat.
Yeah.
And then I found out I was dairy intolerant, so I used to have soy milk, which we now know is not great for men as well.
Yeah.
But I used to have soy milk. I wish we had almond milk back then or something else. But that was my breakfast, this massive big bowl to cope with that training.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so what age were you when you started winning? Is that about 17, 18?
Yeah, so about 16, 17, started winning first Australian Championship at 17, and then 18. I was actually Australian Open Ironman Championship champion at 18, so I probably won my first board race at 16.
So you're winning a lot between the ages of 18 to 24?
Yeah.
So as I assume, tanned as anything, ripped to shreds on the Gold Coast, a young fella. What are the temptations back then?
Oh, there were none.
There were none? Yeah.
Just joking. Well, obviously the thing, and it comes back to the dark side that I spoke about inside myself, is I wanted to be like my dad who had his queen. And so I wanted to be like the guy who always got the girl.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get the girl because I wasn't, so as soon as I felt that confident in myself, and now I've got a chest and abs, and my hair was getting longer and blonder, and I'm winning, and I'm on the front page of the paper and everything. Both the temptation and the trap was the girls.
Yeah.
And I was actually married at 19.
Right.
So Jackie, my first wife, her and I met, we were on the front page of the paper. She was Miss Queensland Surf Girl. So we were like, it was this disaster for us because we both hadn't grown up together, two beautiful young people really trying to look after each other but not knowing how to.
Yeah.
And she's still, we're super close now. And her and Jo, my wife now, who I probably learnt all the stuff that I didn't learn with Jack because I was too young. I just wasn't ready. You know? And there's a line in the song Rocky Mountain High. He was born in the summer of his 27th year, coming home to a place he'd never been before.
Yeah.
He left yesterday behind him. You might say he was born again. You might say he found a key to every door. It's a really beautiful song that John Denver wrote when he went through this personal development stage. And in my 27th year, 26, I'm divorced, been married for 7 years from 19, and I'd fallen for those temptations and those sort of things, and I'd betrayed those relationships, and I'd created a lot of hurt, and from this little shadow inside of me that I was trying to get away from, but I just made stronger. So the temptations, I think I never did drugs. I was never a drug person.
Yeah.
But the temptations, alcohol and partying, you're the guy.
Yeah.
I'd walk into the nightclub, and the owner of the nightclub, who was a great mate, would go, "Oh, Trev," and he'd hand me the drink card, and I'd be in the corner handing out the drinks and stuff like that. So it's fascinating that the first part of the lesson was feeling not good in yourself. Second part of the lesson was finding goodness in yourself to do something great, and then getting caught in the trap that you're great, and that you're special, and needing that illusion of specialness.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be like my dad, but I became less like my dad because my dad was a loyal man who just stood for great values, and I had all that inside of me. But so second part was become great. Third part was turn that into crap, and the fourth part was wake up from it and work out who you really were. So absolutely temptations were the nightclubs, you know. I was around in the Warwick Kappa days,
Right.
I was great mates with, people from all sorts of different sports and rock music and everything else. And because I trained so hard and I was so determined still in that kept me really clean and healthy. But we'd drink after races, and then after a while it'd be a couple of days, a couple of nights, and then my body started to suffer from that. And that's what sent me ultimately to a very holistic chiropractor on the coast here, Keith Maitland, and he told me a couple of home truths and just put it in my face, and one of which is you appear to have some anger issues, And I just remember thinking, I want to punch this guy in the face.
Oh, there you go.
Whilst I was smiling
Yeah.
as the boy next door with the good looks and the tanned body.
Yeah.
But behind myself, I was like, I do a mental note to self. I do appear to be really angry about what he just said.
Yeah.
And so he was the first one to introduce me. He said, mate, you can do all the mental, physical, nutritional things you want, but if you haven't worked with the emotional side and worked out who you are and what you're carrying, you're going to be carrying all that around with you. And it's even if you do win, it's going to be harder and your body's going to show it.
Yeah.
And so I went down a path of releasing some of the crap that led to taking those temptations, but also led to me ultimately not then feeling. So I started off not feeling good about myself, then felt great about myself, then felt not good about myself in a hidden way, and I had to clear all that and get honest and clear those relationships up and sort of correct the record on all those sort of things and start becoming the guy I really needed to be and could be for the kids that I was having as a man who'd now got 2 relationships and ended up with 4 children and that we're all best friends and would do anything for each other now. And the kids are all like brothers and sisters, but it's like one big, amazing family from a bit of a disaster created from some of those temptations, but they became the greatest teacher for me too.
Yeah. Can you touch on any of the times where you said you've been on Baywatch, obviously met Pamela Anderson and the half, but then you mentioned Michael Jackson and the likes of people of that stature that now thinking back, sitting in this chair now, you're like, how did that actually happen? Like that's just, just absolutely, insane. Well, I find it insane. Like you're obviously winning for fun and then you find yourself in these spots, button heads with the biggest people in the world.
My sport was easy to see that I was riding the wave. I was riding the leading wave in the race all the time, but then we were leading this wave in the way our sport was interacted with in Australia. It became really popular. And, like meeting Madonna, her trainer was Australian that travelled the world. And she announced the tour dates to go to Australia. And he goes, oh, we're going to Australia. You've got to meet the Ironman. She's like, so she's on, with Molly Meldrum talking to him on probably the Today Show or something like that. And she's saying, yeah, I'm coming to Australia. He goes, we can't wait to see you. What are you going to do when you're out here? And she's like, well, I've got to meet the Ironman, the Uncle Toby's Ironman like this. And so we're like, what? Madonna's like wanting to meet the Ironman, So using that as an example, we're like next minute we're holding her in our arms as we pick her up off a boat in this celebrity thing in this party of 250 VIPs. And there's like 20 people invited upstairs. We're in a private space and here's 6 of us upstairs with Madonna hanging out with her for the whole night. And I talked to her for ages and all she wanted to talk about was training and I wonder if I can change my tour dates to come surfing with you. And she just was a beautiful, normal person. I'm not sure how she's going now. She's been exposed to that junk for quite a while, so who knows. But it was the same with Michael Jackson. He just asked me all about training and, a strange story was, he was actually standing face to face and me, Samantha Riley and my wife Jo met Michael and right before he went out in concert, we had, I think about 20 minutes, half an hour with him. And at the front door waiting to interview him was Molly Meldrum, like rocking backwards and forwards, crapping himself because he's about to interview Michael. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't be worried. And he's like, it's the biggest interview in the world. If I mess it up, I'm blown, Anyway, we're going to meet Michael and I'm standing really close to Michael and he's asking me about training. As I'm answering the question, he's singing to me like, we are the world. And I'm like, what? This guy's singing to me while I'm talking to him. Like, is that really weird or should I be really stoked? Or in every question he asked, it indicated he's listening to me. But then as I'm answering the next question, he'd sing, now, Billie Jean, it's not my, and he's singing to me. And I'm like, whoa, and I answered that 5
bizarre.
questions or whatever. And then he goes, oh my God, I should apologize. I've got to warm up my voice, So we're there with him while he's warming his voice to go on a concert and he's spending all this time with us. No one else under this big marquee in the back of ANZ Stadium at the time. And but just a really fascinating level of he just wanted to know about our lives and, he could feel him just going, I just want to know about your life. Can you tell me about your life,
Yeah.
We went to Baywatch. David Hasselhoff him and I ended up in a race in the script for first place. He was meant to come 4th place in the race. And he came back from a successful rock tour of Germany and arrived and I heard that Hasselhoff's changing the script and then he called me into the dressing room, his dressing shed sort of thing. And I'm thinking, oh, the Hoffs called me in and he was co-producer of the show by that stage and calls me in, Trevor, sit down, and I sit down next to him and he's like, do his makeup, would you? And they're doing my makeup. So I'm now in the makeup chair next to David Hasselhoff ready for this thing. And he says, look, I've changed it around, and I just wanted you to know that I don't mind coming second to you, but I'm not coming fourth, you know? So I've changed it. You're still winning and I'm coming second.
Yeah.
We're going to have a sprint up the beach. And I was like, it was a strange, honoured feeling that someone could say, I could change this whole script, but I don't want to bet you though, mate. You
bit of a power move, but I'll still let you win.
But I want you to win. So, and that was another demonstration of people just respecting people from other fields and everything else. But I forget the original question, but it's crazy how we ended up there. Played on stage with Johnny Farnham and travelled with him. And as I said, we actually formed a band and played on stage with the Beach Boys. We toured through Melbourne, Sydney and Canberra, played as their backup act before the Beach Boys, which was pretty funny. And wasn't the greatest show on earth, but an incredible experience. And I just think there was something about our sport and what we were doing at the time. And I actually see it in AFL now. Like I actually see AFL as the most inspiring sport in the country. I really do.
Yeah.
I see the way the game's played and the way clubs are changing their cultures and playing with different cultural, even Dimmer, the way he changed things at Richmond and brought vulnerability into it and everything else. And what Fly's doing at the Pies. And, I was lucky enough to work with Simon Goodwin for a while at Melbourne, and he brought in a real genuineness and gentleness into that environment.
Yeah.
But I see the AFL as being a leader in all that sort of stuff. And we were just sort of, hot for a while there. And we ended up mixing and matching with all these amazing people and having so many experiences I haven't even mentioned. But at the end of the day, it taught me that actually all those people that I met that were like stratosphere superstars actually just want to talk about normal things. And a lot of them I stayed in contact with in different ways all around the world. They just reach out to say hello and they want to connect with the normal inside of you. And I was trying to get away from the normal to be a someone so I could get the girl.
Yeah.
But it turns out the normal was actually the power, and for me, my natural state is, as you can, I like to talk and connect and share, and I'm open and honest and all that sort of stuff. And that's who I am. That's where I came from. And that's what I found my way back to.
Awesome. No, I'm still gobsmacked by the people you got to meet there. Now, where the Nutrigrain series is at the minute, where do you think that comp's at? And I'm always interested where someone of your stature in the game, can you see yourself in the guys that are coming through now? And are you still involved with what's going on there in the Nutrigrain series?
It's probably 3 people in the history of our sport that had won. There's 4 big titles. There's the Nutrigrain series. There's the Australian, which is a series of races over different formats. There's the Australian Championship, which is, as I said, a 12-minute short course. The World Championship only happens every second year, which is 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's the Coolangatta Gold, which is a 4-hour race. Well, it was 4.5 when I tried to do something like we had the Gold Coast Gold in the Uncle Toby series.
Yeah.
Ali's days turned it into a 4-hour race just by doing it a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But they're the 4 majors in our sport. And it's funny because because I had the Uncle Toby series, I never raced a Coolangatta Gold. So it's counted as a major, but I never, ever did one. Never got to do one, never got to try one. Even when I was a bit older and better at endurance, I never got to do it. I did a Gold Coast Gold, which was our version in the Uncle Toby series because we weren't allowed to call it that. It was all really fascinating thing. And I got third as a 19-year-old to Guy Leach and Craig Riddington. And so I'd experienced what that race felt like, and I reckon I probably could have won one if I got it right near the end of my career as I went more towards endurance. But the reason I say all this is because when the athletes, when you count up all those titles, Shannon Eckstein has won the most. I think he's won like 22. I think I might have won like 14 or 15. And Ali Day is now on like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So he's actually still flying. He just won. And now there's a 5th, which is almost more prestigious. It's the Summer of Surf. It has big prize money on it. Shaw and Partners Summer of Surf has big events. The guys love it. There's a real enthusiasm about it. The Kellogg series has dwindled down to 3 weekends of 2 races each weekend, so they've got to back up. And prize money's minuscule. They're earning probably a quarter to a fifth of the prize money we earned in 1989, 1990. And yet the Summer of Surf is starting to, with Shaw and Partners, is starting to earn a similar amount of prize money, or could do if they win everything, you know. So I look at the state of the sport and I go, the Kellogg series, it's probably because the sport was huge when it was Uncle Toby's and it was Australian owned, and maybe there's a synergy there, and maybe it's not Nutrigrain. I don't know, and I've worked for Nutrigrain, helped them, and I'm so thankful that they stuck with the sport for so long.
Yeah.
But it's never quite been a real match between the Nutrigrain and Ironman. There's something about it, And then Straw & Partners come along and a different attitude, and all of a sudden Ironman's getting really, really interesting again. It's on both are back on free to air, so both races are happening. Surf Lifesaving must be loving it because the movement of lifesaving is incredible with great leadership. And they're thinking outside the box right now. And that's the primary player you want on side, because their primary role is to protect all the beaches of Australia and to make sure all the states and all the branches and all the clubs have got the resources they need to protect it. Queensland SLSQ are unbelievable. They could probably do it on their own, really. They're unbelievable. But SLSA have to look after this whole, bit like the AFL.
Yep. But
they have to look after this whole movement. Primarily, an Ironman and an Ironwoman is a healthy young athlete that learn how to rescue people. So it's got this crazy thing that to win an Australian Ironman title, you have to have done a certain amount of patrol hours per year. So you can't win an Australian title and get on that list of winners, that Shannon Eckstein list or Trev list or Ali Day list, unless you're actually volunteering your spare
I didn't
time.
know that.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm circling around a big point here. Having said all that, I would say the sport is going through a shift and a change, and as they learn to embrace the new generation, there's some big juggernauts, NRL, AFL, tennis once a year, golf not so much in Australia probably, cricket for this small period of a year, rugby losing a lot of favour, swimming once every 4 years maybe. Sports have these different playing fields as far as their attractivity.
Yep.
But I feel like it's there because I look at Ali Day and I go, does Australia realise that you've got one of the greatest ever athletes in the world winning this series? He won 6 out of 6 races in the Nutrigrain series 2-3 seasons ago. No one had ever done that.
Yep.
I got 5 firsts and 2 seconds in a series, and I think Shannon got 5 firsts and a second. No one had ever done 6 out of 6, and he did that. Won the world title in the same year, the Coolangatta Gold in the same year. They're all different distances. It's like, winning a 100. It's like winning a 3,000 meter steeplechase world championship and then winning the marathon. It's like unbelievable what he's been able to do: board, swim, ski, run, everything else. So I look at the sport and I look at, if I compare my time, I go, the athletes are better.
Yep.
They're more rounded. They've got more science behind them. They've learnt more. The craft is faster. Their recovery's better. The nutrition's better. They're better. They're swimming faster than us. They're ski paddling faster than us. I'm not going to say they're board paddling faster than me, but all right, they're running.
Yeah.
Ali Days, he will do a set of hill sprints, a set of 8, and then turn around with the whole Surfers Paradise squad, and then do a 3-minute kilometre time trial, and then do another set of 8, and he'll do that 5 times in a session. He'll do 35 100s training for the Coolangatta Gold. He'll keep them all under a minute and do them on a minute 5 cycle or a minute 10 cycle or something like that. So I might have just G'd him up more than, I'm pretty sure they're the numbers.
Yeah.
And then you got in our own surf club, Finn Askew coming through. They call him a young Ali Day. He's his own person. But he's capable of all that as well. He's just a young kid, Matt Bevilacqua is a freak athlete.
Yeah.
Matt Poole, who's retired, amazing athlete. But people coming through like Joe Collins, and there's a whole bunch of, all the young brothers, Mitch and Zach Morris and all those crew, amazing young athletes. And then you've got TJ, my son, sitting amongst them, who's won before, who's got to the top of the pile, won a couple of those big races, and then going, I don't just need to go to the next level. I have to redesign and go to a whole other level because there's a new young field coming through. So I'm just talking about the boys.
Yeah.
The girls are incredible.
Yeah.
Georgia Miller is one of the most gifted athletes I've ever seen, broken all of our senior records, all of our men's records in the women's field.
Yeah.
There's so many incredible people, just coming through. So I just think it's super healthy.
Yeah. What did you mention your go was that you didn't want to admit that the guys
board
now
paddling.
are getting board paddling? That was
because I grew up in the surf club, and basically the guy who wins the board start and wins the board race gets to rule the surf club for the next week until we all race again, you know. And so you're only as good as your last start. So if you wanted to shut anyone down, it was like, how'd you go? It's training this afternoon, or how'd you go last weekend? And so that brutal part of me that was the one-upmanship was the board paddling. So the funny thing was, how's the way things work, that I came through that club with these incredible people. I loved my club mates, but in a brutal environment. But pressure cooker taught you to be elite, you know. And I ended up winning 5 Australian board championships and 4 world championships and stuff like that. And that was my biggest passion, was to be the fastest board paddler ever. So that's that little part of me going, like, can I say Ali's fastest board paddler? All right, maybe yes. Definitely over a distance.
Yeah. And what time, what age were you when you called it? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you try to get to the Olympics?
Yeah.
In kayaking, was it?
Yeah. So Grant Kenny raced at the Olympics 84 and won a bronze medal in the LA Olympics when he was still an Ironman, then came back and raced with us.
Yep.
So he was always a kayaker anyway. Clint Robinson was an Ironman, raced in 92, won the Olympic gold medal in kayaking.
Yep.
We were all just kissing and hugging each other, watching him. He's a great mate. I actually just saw him and had the best catch up with him I've had for years the other day, actually, which was really cool. So, yeah, Clint Robinson did that. Kai Hurst switched to swimming and swam at 3 Olympics in 5K distance swimming as well. And if he really concentrated, he probably would have made it for 1,500 as well.
Yeah.
But he was racing so many different things. Of course, he then went on to race America's Cup as well for America, you know, that last outing they had. You know, and so back, I was previous to those guys, I just had this feeling like there was something bigger that I needed to go for. And I'd ticked off, I'd beaten Grant's records and I'd won the titles that I wanted to win. And I went, I'm going to go to the Olympics and be a kayaker. I thought that was the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It seemed like it, from an athlete mentality, was racing a bigger sport. Not a bigger sport because maybe it's not even, I don't know, it's 170,000 Australian surf lifesaving members alone, you know. So I don't know if kayaking is a bigger sport participation-wise worldwide, but certainly the amount of countries that race it and take it seriously. It's like the number 1 summer sport in Hungary and Belgium and places like that. And so I actually switched to kayak paddling in 1994 to make the 2000 Olympics. And I nearly made the 96 Olympics. So in the point score they did for selection, I was 2nd or 3rd in the point score for selection amongst all the paddlers. But then they announced a team to go. Instead of naming a squad, we were all going to trial out for team boats. They just announced a team. And I was like, what? The team that you named in the K4, we'd beaten them 3 times this year. You know, it was like a bit of a weird political thing.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of ego and arrogance, and I think I probably wasn't that welcome in the sport at that stage. I was like, I'll just come and be really good at this sport, you know. Confidence slashed into cockiness and always get you kicked in the ass. But I raced it for 4 years and I ended up going to World Championships, and we got bronze medal at World Cups. Our K4, Danny Collins, Andrew Trim and Pete Scott, and they went on to win silver medal by 8/100th at the 2000 Olympics in the pair.
Yeah.
But in 98, we had a challenging 98, and I think we saw things slightly differently, and really challenging final race, and we got 5th in the World Championships in a horrible lane where there was waves breaking over the front of our boat. And it just gave enough impact for the guys. I don't know if we want to do K4. And I went, actually, I don't want to do this. What am I still doing this for? Like, what am I trying to win to prove myself for?
Yeah.
And that was 1998. So I was in the Australian kayak team, and that's the team you want to be in to go to the Olympics. And I was at the level, and I was paddling well, and I'd done a really fast time in the K1 and stuff. And I just went, no, this is not actually winning anymore. And it kind of just flipped to me that I had a press conference, because that stage, my manager and I thought I was a big deal, set a press conference to retire. Now I think, what? Why did you have a press conference?
Yeah.
Why do people even care? But and I remember saying, look, I think I want to help other people win their gold medal rather than try and win mine. I actually feel more excited about helping people. And that sounded like I wanted to go into coaching, but I'd started to learn about myself through Keith, the chiropractor, and the anger issues and everything. And what I wanted to go was helping people feel good about themselves and release their baggage. So I retired in 98 and then did a series of degrees and things in counselling and facilitation, live group facilitation and stuff like that. So that's what I've done for the 26 years since, is work to help other people release the baggage, that even if they do win, they can hold that feeling of winning, rather than me, who won, but I had to keep winning to make this feeling go away that I wasn't good enough. And when I got someone helped me release that, I just felt like I hadn't felt that free, that light in myself since I was like a 13, 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
since it had the young insecurities. And I'm now 26, 27, born in the summer of his 27th year. And I'm like, oh my God, I actually feel free. And so that over a few years, I experimented with it. I came back I just before I retired and switched, I had 8 firsts and 2 seconds in the 10 most important race of the year. And I was like, and that was from being on the start line of the race. Dare I say it, I was racing from love, from connection, from gratitude. I would look at my mates' names on the back of their togs, Leach and Riddington, and I just could feel how much I loved them. And then they'd all run off at the start like they were trying to smash each other, and I'd be like languishing at the back of the pack. And at the end of the race, I'd win these races with less training, more connection. And so it just took me down a path of going, I think you could shift from win at all levels to, win at all costs to win on all levels. And you could actually win along the way rather than have to have a big breakdown at the end. Like with so many great sports stars, swimmers, AFL players, rugby players, they get the winning and then they end up in gambling and alcohol and drugs and scandals and things, and they struggle with their own body health and everything afterwards, because for a long time we weren't taught that how to win along the way, how to win inside of ourselves. Yep. And so I became really passionate about that because it was a lived experience, and I'd lived through some pain and some suffering and some severe oh my God, look what you've done, mate, like severe, like, oh my God, look what you've become. And didn't really, because that part of me I didn't think other people needed to do that to achieve those titles. And I think Ali's probably a good example, that happily, beautifully married man owns a couple of houses and a couple of businesses, and he's breaking all the records. And, he'll run past you in a Coolangatta Gold in a run leg and yell out, I love you, and it's like, where's the killer focus gone? No, he's just in flow, And so I think that's the next athlete. I think that's the next football team. I think that's the next way that the next level of excellence is to win from a state of flow and connection and ease inside of ourselves, rather than force and fury and have to. That other game, you have to play that other game to understand, and you have to fight. You have to become a warrior, But once you've been a warrior for long enough, you start to go, well, I think I need to heal a few of these wounds and play the game from a place of connection and love,
Yeah. So you mentioned getting that win at the end of a tournament, or just at the end of a game, or could be the end of a preseason. What are some examples that you talk about with people that you work with that could be like a win along the way, like the first step or the first hurdle? What do some of them look like, if you can touch on them?
Do you mean perfect examples myself?
Oh, yeah. We can touch on yourself instead of bringing up.
I'll use an example just for myself to start. It was the first World Oceanman race it was sponsored by Foster's. It was telecast worldwide. It was the first world professional race, not just the Uncle Toby series. And we raced the first race in Piha in New Zealand. And I'd just done a seminar the week before about this stuff. And I'm like living in love. I'm just going, oh my God, we're good enough as we are. We can measure ourselves in our capacity to perform and achieve in a moment against other athletes. But does that measure my worth as a human? And I was like, no, your worth as a human is deep intrinsic inside of you. It's measured more by your ability to love or be free or communicate freely or tell the truth or, just to care about someone else is probably a more deep intrinsic measure of your worth as a human. And so I started to bring that other part and more the circular part. The ocean came back into me rather than the straight line of winning. It was like the circular of the feminine, the yin. It was like, I'm actually good enough as I am. So why have I been thinking I've got to win to feel good enough? So this is just blown out of me. And Nathan Meyer, who's on the coast here, he was twice world Ironman champion, and sort of followed me through the ranks, and younger guy. And he was in the seminar with me. And the next week we're doing this race, World Oceanman race. And he felt so free that he turned up to this world televised race and he painted his face with our surf club cap colour. So he had a yellow face with blue face with a gold star on his face, like this gold star.
Yeah.
And he painted his face, and everyone, oh, Nath, you're funny. Oh, Nath, taking the piss and being the clown, which he was, and he was really good at it. And it was part of what his natural strength was. And I'm still best mates with him. I see him all the time. We go fishing together all the time. But Nathan and I rock up. And now we're racing this other field of people that are going, this is the first world race. Da, da, da. He's having the time of his life in New Zealand. I'm having the time. He's probably more young guy having the time of his life going, oh, my God, look at all these amazing girls that are talking to us, whatever else, I'm having the time of my life because I'm actually being really still. I'm older. I'm going, I don't need to win this race to prove myself. Oh my God. And so right before the race started, they did the haka in front of us, the local tribe basically did the haka, local mob. I've got tears streaming down my face, black sand of Piha Beach. They're doing the haka and I'm just going, oh my God, how beautiful are these people? The people, this culture. Okay, who are they? Why do I not know more about this? I've raced here before. I've won titles.
Yeah.
What have I been doing? And I'm watching, and I'm blown away. And I'm looking at the names on the togs once again, as I alluded to before. I'm going, oh, I love him. I love just seeing all these people. I'm just in love with everybody. The race starts, and they literally run off down the field, and they're like all trying to smash each other. As the race goes on, I'm actually moving to so we go into the first swim leg, and we're coming in and massive surf, and this is how it looks: is that I'm swimming. I'm just so excited to be here, and and the water was freezing. We decided not to have wetsuits, and it was massive waves. No wetsuits, big waves, and I'm swimming, and I couldn't feel the water. It didn't matter to me. I'm just having the time of my life. And this massive series of sets of waves come in the swim leg. I managed to pick up this wave. I think it was broken, or I got down it and exploded, and I managed to get out in front of it. Anyway, I had to hold my breath for ages. I finally come out in front of the wave, take a big breath, put my head to the side, take the breath. Staring back at me was the blue cat with the gold star on the face. And he's like, as he's going, and we're both like, oh, no way. Like, Nath is like, oh, Trev. And we see each other and head back down, and you got to ride it to the beach. We stand up. There's no one on the wave with us. So the two people that were most in love and in the moment in this massive conditions are now leading the race. Other people came up in and out. We led the whole thing in and out with other people the whole way for the next 6 legs of this race rotating. We go, and there was one stage in the board leg where I'm paddling along, and I'm going, and I had this thought, and the thought was, this is so easy. I feel so good. I feel so light. I could win this. As soon as I had the thought I could win this, it was like this energy entered me, came into me, and it felt like a heaviness.
Oh, yeah, right.
My heart rate went through. The water felt cold. My muscles felt tight. My board stopped running, all instantly. And I have my let's call him spiritual teacher used to say, when you get a thought that's going to take you off track, you've got 3 seconds to recognize it. If you buy into it, it can take you weeks to get out of it. If you recognize it and see the insanity of it, you can get rid of it straight away, because it's not you having that thought. It's just like this little seductive thought.
Yeah.
I could win this.
Yeah.
Because, the old me would go, I could win. I could bring in that whole old self that I'd just been getting rid of. I recognized it instantly. I went, I don't want that. I'd much rather just feel this feeling I'm feeling. And it just left out of me like a cloud coming over me and just blew away. And the water felt normal again. My heart rate dropped. My muscles loosened up. And I was like, what is going on? And Laird Hamilton had this beautiful saying, where the mind goes, the body will follow. If my mind, if I allowed it to go to, I could win this, my body was going to go into the battle. But because I went, no, I'm actually enjoying this experience, my mind went to the letting go and my body went to letting go. And so we raced around. Long story short is, last leg, it's only 2 people with a chance of winning the race. We're paddling out the skis side by side, me and Nath. We had to roll under these waves. They were so big, a massive 17-foot-6 long ski. We're rolling, and Nath reports back to me later that as we're under the water, he goes, I could win this. And so when we roll the skis back over, he jumps on as fast as he can so he can get a tiny little break. So when the set stops, he's just like half a ski length or a ski length in front, and he could take off and win it. So that part of him came in. The same thing that tried to come in with me. I can win this. And so I get up to get back on the ski, to take a stroke and then roll it again. As I get up, he's already on and moving really fast. I'm thinking, wow, Nathan's just really got determined. So he rolls before me. I roll, ski violently gets shaken around. I hold on to it. The paddle's there in the other hand. It's like hitting you in the face and everything. I come up, turn the ski over. I sit back on the ski because I'm leaning over it. I hop back up. As I sit up, I look and I see Nathan's face in the water with his big cap painted on his face. No ski.
Gone.
Lost the ski. And he went into, something we haven't chatted a lot about, but he went into this thing because I recognised it later that I think you wanted to win it. And then you lost what you had in the attempt to win what you didn't have, and so I'm paddling out and I'm actually thinking, oh no, Nath poor Nath. I'm still not thinking I'm winning the race. I'm thinking poor Nath. And I funnily enough, who comes over next to me on the jet ski, who's driving the camera jet ski because his level of water skill, Marty Kenny, Grant Kenny's brother,
Yeah.
you know, that I grew up, who loved me as a mate and looked after me. And he comes up and he goes, Trev, you're going to win. And I'm like,
good
like
news.
there's no one else out. I've got to just paddle around, paddle back to the beach, and
Yeah.
I've won this first world professional race. When I crossed the line, I crossed the line. It was the first time ever. There was this big steel eye with this water running out of for Ocean Man. It was like you ran through. That was like the christening, you know, the baptism as you ran through it. And as I crossed the line, I used to always run with one hand by my side, fist clenched, pumped above my hand, with my head down, eyes closed. It was like I was almost ashamed and embarrassed of how I'd won.
Yeah.
And I crossed the line, my eyes were wide open, both hands open, fully right up, just going, oh my God, just having this feeling like, and it felt like to me on that day like I'd won for everybody and win it with everybody.
Yeah.
So that's my personal example.
Yeah.
And I could never go back after that. And then what happened was from that, I was like, there's a higher point, guys, than winning. You can win from a place that's win on all levels. And then what that meant was how I actually saw everybody as my equal, not as better or worse than me. I saw every media person that spoke to me as a person with a family and kids. You know, I saw a sponsor as a person that was actually giving me huge opportunities, but also had a life. And so everyone was first name basis everywhere I went, you know, and I'd be smiling at the start of races because I was already winning, as in I was living the life of winning, enjoying myself. And that was the year that I came back and won everything more than anyone had ever won, from this place of stillness inside of myself, no need to prove myself. And then went along with a bunch of people. I've been lucky enough and had a beautiful friendship for many years with Kelly Slater, who retired after 6 world titles. And then we spent a lot of time hanging and surfing together as great mates. And there's a lot of synergy between us. It's like we're from the same planet, you know, water people, you know, pull freak waves out of our butts right at the last minute to win or whatever else. So we had this beautiful synergy and connection that we could talk about. But I was a bit older, a bit like an older brother. And then I'd walk through this journey of win on all levels, and he was able to say, can you actually support me in that? And he came back onto the World Surfing Tour and won another 5 world titles after he retired with 6. Probably the greatest athlete of all time.
Yeah.
And certainly come from the most fascinating place. You know, he's 52 and he's on the world tour at the moment. You know, at 2 weeks before his 50th birthday, he won the Pipeline Masters.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a perfect example of win on all levels. But even he would say, oh, it's a constant challenge because I just started losing again because I got too serious about this or that, you know. So I learned it. I did my best to pay it forward, and I do my best to speak about it because I just want to constantly tell people, no, you are already enough, and it starts from that.
Yeah.
You know, so don't race or compete or play or perform or try and grow a business or get that girl or that guy to make you feel like enough, because you can only ever lose the feeling if it came from outside of yourself. It'll only ever be compromised by a change of circumstances. But if you can grow it inside of yourself, separate from results, then that's the base, that's the ultimate base of the pyramid. And at the end of it, you might win the premiership and win the Brownlow, or win whatever you do as a footballer. But what you'll end up doing also is you'll become the person you wanted to be during football.
Yep.
You know, and then there's no down transition afterwards because you just flow straight into what your passion that you've already recognised, and people just flow. So there's none of this win at all costs, the cost will come afterwards. It's like win on all levels and you'll keep winning. But it's to do that, you have to you have to slowly learn to take an extreme level of self-responsibility.
Yeah.
What you're thinking, what you're feeling has to be your responsibility.
You mentioned working with Bucks,
Yeah.
Craig McRae, Simon Goodwin, Kelly Slater. All greats for the game, whether it be coaching or athletes themselves. What traits do you think they all hold as individuals when you're working with them, whether it be determination, perseverance, resilience?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I mentioned working with Craig McRae, but I have been recently. You know,
you said fly. You mentioned fly.
Oh, yeah, fly. Yeah, just the way I see him doing it, you know.
Yeah.
But what are the things I see in them? And a lot of other coaches in different areas that aren't as known, but I see a willingness to grow and learn themselves. So the best aspects of those coaches that I saw lead to cultures that grew fast and got to a point of being able to fulfill potential. Thing I saw was exactly what I just finished with the point, extreme level of self-responsibility. And they already had that. So if I came into their world and said, well, you have to take self-responsibility also for your feelings and your past baggage that you might be carrying with you, and your desperate need to win might also be your responsibility, those people would line up with a sense of, yep, if that's my next thing, because they had this extreme self-responsibility. It's how they got to where they got to in the first place. And I think probably what I was able to do, which I just paid it forward because someone did it for me, for those type of people, is to say, hey, heart and soul, man, heart and soul, you can do everything you want in the head and body, but if you're not sorting after the heart, looking after the heart and soul, including past that you've got to let go, future that you're desperately clinging on to, and bring yourself back into the moment, then no matter how much you try and be the best version, mind and body of yourself, you can't be, because you're not fully here. You're not fully present, because your deeper spirit is okay, and it loves people, and it's enthusiastic. It wants everybody to win. Your personality just wants you and your people to win, but your deeper spirit loves seeing other people winning. And in fact, don't be scared of it, because if you embrace it, you won't win less, you'll win more. But if I love everybody winning, then I have to share it with everybody. What actually happens is you start actually flying and you start winning more, which is another element of win on all levels. So what I saw and humbly saw in those guys was, and it almost brought it back to me, was an extreme level of self-responsibility, because they really did just say, yep, I see something that you're bringing me in that instance, for example, I'm in, tell me what do I need to do? And it's like, wow, okay, let's go. You've got all your own answers, but I want to help you see some of those answers. So, but absolute courage. And you probably see if you name those three people that I've been lucky enough to be around at different stages, Fly, Bucks and Simon Goodwin, a level of vulnerability and honesty in their press conferences and everything else. They weren't in game playing with the press or anything else, because I think that better versions of themselves was always similar to Dimmer, here I am,
What do you want to know?
we're all equals. Let's have a conversation here, and no disrespect to anyone and occasionally there's, a little bit of bitterness creeps in with people because it's there. But those amazing men to be around, and I've been lucky enough to be around a lot of people like that, because my vocation became helping people win on all levels, and the spirit and the heart has to come into that equation. So to get the spirit and heart back in, you actually have to remember who you really are, and most of that was lost at a young age. So you got to go through a bit of your crap that you bought into as a young age and become that person that desperately needed to win. So I've ended up being able to work with some amazing people.
I think that might do us, mate.
Yeah.
Very good. There's a lot of stuff in there that people get out of. Do you have anything for myself? Is there anything you want to know about the footy club?
No, I just love the tour you just gave me. I'm a Gold Coaster. I was born in Melbourne, but I've been here since I was 5. I'm 55 now, going on 56. So 50 years this has been my place.
Yeah.
And I've been the poster boy for the Gold Coast and everything else, and I love the Suns,
Yeah.
And I loved it when they first started, make sure we're your second club, because everyone on the Gold Coast went for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I've been a Pies guy, and I've been lucky enough to work with them and blah, blah, blah. And I grew up in that area, and cousin played for them, and I've got this sweet spot for the Pies. But I'm like, come on, Sonnies, we can do this. And so I just toured around, and I'm like, I can see the elements in place, all that different elements that are subtle to some that not always recognised. But when one club is driving together with one vision, and they have at least a consistent level of self-responsibility for how we all show up in the space, board and presidents and staff and everything else, and everybody's going for the same thing, which I know Dim is very big on, and I know the great coaches are big on.
Yeah.
And it's not always the easiest thing to do, but when it starts to happen, it's something really beautiful and powerful. So, mate, I'm just excited that we've met, and I'm now got your phone so I can text you and say,
right.
hey, dude, how was that?
It's always on. It's always on.
And be in the corner there with you, mate, because I just got a lot of love for the Suns, and I know this Gold Coast, and we looked out that window, that big window of yours out there.
Yeah.
And I went, this is what the rest of the sporting country doesn't have, the AFL country doesn't have. They can't look out and see that sky so many days of the year. And that's not a distraction. That's actually a strength if you learn how to embrace it, because people will come for the culture, for the tenacity of the team, but they'll come for the lifestyle as it fits together. They can exactly everything I've just said for the last hour, so they can win on all levels, not distract myself and pretend I'm on the Gold Coast trying to win. No, you can. This could be a place to create a dynasty of great thought and movement.
Well, thank you again. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks,
and,
mate.
A new supporter. Your
Yeah.
first team now.
Yeah. Well, hey, just let's just say I've got 2 teams that I love.
All right. Good work, Trevor. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Rory.
Beauty. Ripper, mate.
Cool, mate.
Thanks so much.